When I watched Inception at the cinema, the first time I saw it, during the experience of watching it, it was a wonderful movie, very, very good movie. Christopher Nolan, one of my all-time favourites, one of the great film directors, I certainly think, fabulous, transcendent filmmaker. I came up with an alternative ending that I thought was actually going to be the ending, and I think it's better than the real ending of Inception and makes the movie and kind of its resolution even more powerful. Now, spoiler, I'm obviously going to talk about the ending of Inception. I'm obviously going to give away key plot details. If the title didn't give it away for you, and you haven't listened to anything I've said so far, you pretty much deserve to have the movie spoiled. I don't think you would enjoy it anyway. Maybe you should just go out by the side of the road and watch a traffic light change. That's about more your pace, right? Take some personal responsibility. So in the real ending that you'll have seen on the cinema or on your Blu-ray copies of Inception, he goes back home, the key character Dom, but the protagonist, but we never know if the totem that he spins on the table drops and therefore suggests that he's awake and this is his real life and he got back to his family, or is he still dreaming and is this another layer to the dream and is the dream playing with him in some sense? Since, you know what, he has this good, feel-good ending if he meets his kids. If he's still in the dream, ooh, it says something about, you know, the nature of reality and, oh, can you ever escape it and did he go too far? Now, listen, everyone argues and focuses in on this whole detail, which apparently is technically correct. Like, well, the top wasn't technically his totem, though. It was his wife's. His was his ring, and so it doesn't matter if the top falls or not. Like, okay, that could be. By the way, movies aren't always perfectly plotted. In fact, sometimes they don't even have traditional logic. And there's the whole Grant Morrison thing of, like, it's not real, is it? It's about what the story is. It's not actually about trying to portray pure realism or pure logical consistency. There can be dream logic, for example. Another one they also go on about is, but if you look, the kids would be too young. Like, he was supposed to have been away for many years on work and he hadn't seen them, so his kids wouldn't be that age. Again, maybe that was just the shorthand Christopher Nolan was doing. Maybe he thought it'd be too weird if you had to have an older kid and then go, Daddy or Dad, what do you do? You know, maybe he thought this is just easier. Again, maybe the whole ambience of the movie is a dream and dream logic. Have you ever thought of that, right? If you watch a movie like Mulholland Driving, like, this doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense. That's the point. It's beyond rationality. Free yourself from these chains. You don't have to enjoy it, but understand it was never meant to make sense in that particular regard. Now, when I left the cinema, though, I had a totally different vibe to all these people, because I expected the ending to be the ending, I'm going to tell you now, that I actually came up with, I think about halfway into the movie. I'd have to go and check what scene he actually meets this particular character I'm going to talk about in a minute. So the basic theme of my ending is largely centered around Greek mythology and some references in this movie, because I was a student of the classics. So in the movie, they explain that with his wife, they went too many layers deep into the dream. They got lost in it, essentially. Obviously, he did an Inception on her. Then they explain, you know, he's an outlaw in the real world. He can't return to the US. He can't return to his family because of whatever's gone on, you know, suspicions about the circumstance of his wife's death or whatever. Now, in the movie, he goes to meet Michael Caine's character, which is basically his father-in-law, the father of his now deceased wife. And he tells him, come back to reality, Dom. Come back to your family. And as a result, concerns already start to creep in to the observant viewer of, like, maybe he could still be in the dream. But of course, it could also be metaphor, right? You could literally be saying, look, forget all that stuff. Come back, just find a way, like, go to prison if you have to, but just come back to your family. Like, you can't stay on the run forever. You know, there's two ways you can interpret it, like all great art, right? It doesn't just hand you on a silver platter what it has to mean. Now, one of the students of the Michael Caine character from memory was the character that was basically played by an actor with the surname Page. And he brings this character on to become his new architect, right? To build the mazes in the dreams that can trap people, contain them, stop some of the dream, whatever beings or whatever coming and getting you, etc. Now, what was the name of this character? What was her name? Her name in this movie was Ariadne. Now, as soon as I heard that, and her job involving building mazes or labyrinths, I thought, I've got it. I've actually nailed the ending of the movie. I remember looking like no one else is clocking this. I thought this is going to be amazing though. When they lead to that, a lot of people might not understand what he's setting up here, but this is going to be so sick. Because essentially, it's the myth of Theseus and the Minotaur. So a quick version of that is Crete, this little island off of Greece, demands tributes of Athens, one of the city-states of Greece, of some young girls and young boys to be sent every year, and then they take those people and they feed them to the Minotaur, this beast that's the son of the king, that's half bull, half human, the head of a bull, like body of a man. It lives in a labyrinth, which is a maze constructed by Daedalus, the guy who later on is involved with the story with Icarus. And because he's the son of the king, you know, like, this is a powerful creature to have, right? They're not just going to kill it outright. He's allowed to live. Now, Theseus, the son of the Athenian king Aegeus, offers to go as part of this tribute and kill this beast and end this thing of having to send the tributes and be under the sort of the thumb of King Minos of Crete. Now, when he goes, as is a classic storyline trope in Greek mythology, Minos' daughter, Ariadne, separate to this story, falls in love with Theseus. And so she tells Theseus how to essentially go into the labyrinth and still escape, because she gives him this ball of yarn, and by putting the yarn out as he goes, obviously when he's finished and he kills the Minotaur, which he does, he can just follow the yarn back and he escapes the labyrinth and he's out. So when I heard that was this character's name, Ariadne, I thought the story was going to end that Ariadne, the character in the movie, this one that just happened to be doing a student of his father-in-law who's telling him to come back to reality, come back to his family. I thought this character would basically explain to him that what he thinks is reality, he thinks the base level of reality is the one where he's doing this whole thing with Cillian Murphy's character, that he's trying to incept him, etc., and get him to break up the companies. She would tell him that actually this is a dream as well. And she would tell him, come up to another layer with me. He would come up, he would wake up, and he is in the real world, finally. And he realizes Ariadne is his daughter, and it's been like a decade or more since he left home, and since he's been off in the dream and been doing all these quests and things and trying to get his way back. And I personally would even have it where it would retain the atmosphere of the original by then again reintroducing the idea of maybe it was still a dream, because that would still be such a wonderful ending and in some ways even more unrealistic, right? And referencing a like dream logic of an actual myth that's quite famous. And what would happen is then when he would go off with her and the rest of his family at that point in time to sort of reunite, as he leaves again, he just chucks the last of his stuff on the edge of whatever, the hospital bed, could wear whatever you want. And basically maybe he's come out of a coma, and then when he goes, you can just have the totem again and it's spinning, and then the movie cuts to black, and that's the ending. So listen, it's a brilliant movie. I just think that once he gets to sort of the limbo level and beyond, it wasn't really as inspired. Like, it's an okay resolution. I like the fact it leaves it open-ended, but I think this is a fantastic ending, and this really could add a little extra oomph at the end of the movie and bring together some elements that were earlier on in the movie only for the observant people.